Well, first of all, we need to regain the lost momentum after the Copenhagen Accord was put out. So I'm very pleased with the British government's position in taking the leadership in regaining that momentum. We need collective action to work and make practical and deliverable some of the initiatives that were outlined in the Accord. And I think if we implement those initiatives that are part of the Accord, then we may advance the process towards a binding agreement and an outcome that puts us closer to solving the climate problem. I agree that we had a lot of alliances, including an alliance to work out the Accord. Many people felt that it was not so democratic, but I've seen the serious attempt on the part of many delegations. The British delegation, Kevin Rudd and his team, Sarkozy, Stoltenberg, these are very enlightened leaders who sought to involve the developing world in consultations before the negotiations and kept us informed to a large extent as to progress during those discussions. I think we erred, that the presidency erred on the process. So there was too much of a focus on procedural issues rather than content. And the presidency needed to get away from the negotiators at the beginning, right up to the heads of state who were there very early in the meeting. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And so that left most of the negotiations to be done in probably the period just before the meeting ended. So everything was rushed. We're not satisfied that the Accord could deliver all that we needed it to deliver. But it is a tremendous advance from where we were before Copenhagen. I don't know if we can reach a binding legal treaty by Mexico. We should definitely work towards it. But I think we can advance quite a bit of work if we establish the Green Fund and outline the principles and the mechanism on which it would be built. If we can get a RED Plus mechanism approved, the Adaptation Fund approved and disbursing resources to developing countries. These are three things that will, I think, move us closer to the solution. Of course, we should try to find some level or to reach some compromise in what seems very rigid position on the part of two sets of countries. The developing world insisting on the Kyoto Protocol and its principles being maintained, and many countries in the developed world wanting an alternative treaty. And the British government position today could be the basis on which a compromise is struck. I'm always very pleased that the document said that they have no intention of abandoning Kyoto Protocol. Well, first of all, the targets are important based on the science, and unfortunately we have not had the level of commitment surrounding targets that we wished that would lead us to the accomplishment of a 2 degrees Celsius rise above pre-industrial levels by 2050, particularly in the early years. So we need to do much more on the target. But even if we had a strong commitment on the targets, binding agreements on the target, it wouldn't make sense unless there is financing to support it. So this is why finance is so important, and not just raising the money, but doing it in a practical way, recognizing the difficulties that all countries have. The recipient countries have had a problem with the way traditional aid has been disbursed, intermediated to them, and they're very fearful that similar mechanisms would be used, which may stymie their need to adapt to climate change and to take mitigation actions. The developed world has some realities. Their public finances are stretched to the limit because of the global financial crisis. They also are concerned about accountability issues, and these are valid concerns. So I think we may be able to come up with some innovative mechanisms that are realistic to raise the funds, that would be predictable and sustainable. And we need also to come up with a financial mechanism that recognizes all of these principles. But yes, you're absolutely right that finance is so critical to us achieving the limitation of greenhouse gases, and therefore we're paying serious attention to the work of this group. Hopefully it could come up with some very concrete ways, not just a general declaration or a declarative statement, but some very concrete ways of how we can raise the money.